Welcome to the start of something great, man. It's your boy Wraith, and today, if you read the title, obviously we're going to be talking about the draft, more so from the Hornets perspective, because I myself am a Hornets fan living in Charlotte. But also, we're going to talk about the obvious. Um, Not really many surprises in this draft. I guess the biggest one would be Bilal, but coming from a lot of inside sources, they said that he really was hitting home runs in his draft workouts. So, looking at it from that standpoint, it does make sense that they would fall in love with him and the Wizards being willing to make that trade. It only costs them 2 second-round picks. And if you're the Wizards and you've been making the offseason decisions that you've been making, obviously trading away Porzingis, getting CP3, trading him away, getting Jordan Poole, who was promising, and I think on a new team he can make some more strides. It does make a lot of sense for them to go ahead and push for that sort of thing. Um, and honestly, he's obviously not a bad pick. It just seemed like a bit of a reach to grab him so early at 7. But if you're the Wizards, you have a lot to play around with. You don't have really any egregious contracts. Um, I heard Kuzma wants 30 million. If I'm the Wizards, you could, if you think that he's part of your future, you could go ahead and spend that bag, because I really don't think anybody else is going to give him 30. But that's not a I guess that's not a requirement. But even if you did decide to go that route, you don't really have you have stuff to work with. You have cap space, right? You have obviously draft picks, and you have Jordan Poole now. So if you think that these guys can lead you further down the road, you have a good young core to build around. And there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you're the Wizards, because you've been suffering in mediocrity for a while, and unloading Bradley Beal definitely helped that. You know what I'm saying? But looking at it, obviously we knew Victor Wembanyama was going to go 1. That's not surprising at all. Uh, Amen and Asura Thompson being the first two brothers drafted in the top 5. That was pretty cool. There were some concerns about their age and what they were doing, but I'm not really too worried about it. They both seem to be the real deal, um, honestly. And they went to the Rockets and the Pistons. So if you're either of those teams, obviously the Rockets have Jalen Green. They have a good young core. Talks about James Harden going back. Really don't think that would really stunt Jalen's growth amongst some of the other players. I don't think that would be the best option. If I'm the Rockets, I'm not making that move. That's not really, like, does that make us better in the short term? Yes, but does that needle push us to contenders? No. So I really wouldn't. I don't see the point in that reunion. The Pistons, they've actually been pretty decent from a building standpoint. They need to put all the pieces together. They have the ingredients. They just really need to cook. Um, that's really all it is for them. If I'm the Pistons, I'm feeling pretty good though. Now, the thing about the Blazers and the Hornets at 2 and 3 is I wanted Scoot. A lot of people that I knew, a lot of people that I know wanted Scoot as well, because he's just a more NBA ready prospect. Obviously, being 6'2", he doesn't have the most immaculate height, but because he runs the one guard spot really most of the time, it makes sense. Even if he's at the 2, he's not terribly short, especially if you were to pair him with LaMelo Melo being obviously 6'7". Scoot is 195, 200-ish, so he has the NBA body. Obviously, he can put on a little bit more weight, but he's got a good build to him. Pretty ripped from the photos that I've seen and the videos, and from all his NBA workouts, he seemed to be doing a really solid job. And to me, in any other draft, he's the number 1 prospect. The only reason why he wasn't, obviously, was because we have somebody that's been anointed the greatest prospect ever since LeBron. Again, the last time we heard this one, obviously, we've heard what's his name, the passer, Ben Simmons. Yeah, my fault. Hasn't really been in the news lately, but obviously you had your Ben Simmons and your Andrew Wiggins, but it's really, or Zion Williamson, excuse me. Wow, that was bad. But once Zion breaks through his stuff, the Pelicans will be a sleeper for a deep postseason run if he can stay healthy. Him and Bi, I love that tandem. But back on topic, because I love to get off topic. The Blazers getting Scoot is a good look. If you look at it from Dame's perspective, I heard that he's willing to let them get some things in order before they offload him. Even if that's not the case, I know he doesn't want to sit through an entire another rebuild. Scoot's a more ready player now, obviously, than Brandon Miller. So if you're the Blazers right now, you're not mad at the fact that you ended up picking Scoot instead of Brandon. Or if they wanted to go another route, right? Scoot was the best player available at their spot, and they got him, which is great for them. Um, if I'm the Blazers and I'm situated the way that I am now, I think it's a good pick because it allows us to have a good guard that's definitely going to be a perennial all-star, no question about that. If what he's put together, especially as young as he is, putting together his resume right now in the G League, just taking a little bit of a step up to the NBA, easy, light work. And his favorite player growing up was Russell Westbrook, and he plays a lot like him. Obviously, he likes to get out on transition in both ends, but he's also more of a he has a lot more patience than a half court set. Like when you see Westbrook, sometimes you see him rush certain things, or he pushes the ball very heavily, or he tries to hunt for certain things that might not necessarily be there as much as he would like for them to be, or as much as he reads them to be. But with Scoot, you see a lot more. Well, you see a lot more patience once he gets to the half court set, and he can't just barrel his way downhill. He has a lot more of a calm energy around himself, and he's a solid decision maker. Obviously, he played with G League and Ignite, and he had 19 games, averaging 16 and a half, 6.5 assists, and 5.4 rebounds, 5.5, and a steal in 30 minutes, 31 minutes. His shooting splits were 43 overall, 28 from three, which is low. But in his draft workouts, his stroke looked very smooth, and he was hitting. Now, obviously, there's no defense there. It's really just to see who you are as a person. I don't think that's going to be a big problem for him. His stroke, he doesn't have a hitch or anything bad in his stroke, so it's definitely a repairable thing. And honestly, if he really focused on that aspect of his game instead of just focusing on being a downhill driver and focusing on his hyper athleticism that he definitely has, you could see a drastic improvement from that area. But it's just not been a really big, important part of his bag, despite being 6'2", just because of his athleticism. Shooting 76% from the free throw line. So it could get that up a little bit, but overall, it's about what we expect from more of a driver of the basketball. He also played a couple games, the exhibition games against the Metropolitans 92, which was the French team that Victor Wembanyama plays for, obviously. And he looked really good in those games. I liked what I saw. I wouldn't say he outplayed Victor, but it's hard to outplay Victor considering what all he's capable of doing and how he's able to be all around the court. Scoot's definitely very good at getting to his spots, picking his spots well, making the right passes, making the right plays. And on defense, even though he is 6'2", he has a sturdy frame, and because of his athleticism, he's able to get a lot of help side blocks. He's able to get into the passing lanes. He anticipates the passing lanes very well, obviously averaging a steal a game. He's active. If nothing else, he's going to give you effort. Obviously, his favorite player growing up being Westbrook, you should expect that from him. But it always says something where even if things aren't going perfectly well, you can expect him to make that extra effort and do all the things that even if his shot isn't falling, making other things happen when the ball's in his hands and when the ball's not in his hands, which is always great. So if I'm the Blazers, I love the pick. As a Hornets fan, I didn't love that because I wanted him. I'm tired of being mediocre. I like to win. I like to watch my team win games. I don't like going to games and seeing $39 seats is great, but not when it's your team and you're losing, and that's why they're $39. You know what I'm saying? But there is a silver lining. There's always two sides to every story, and Brandon Miller is that silver lining for us. Obviously, 6'9", 200 pounds, solid build, solid player. He played with Alabama this past season, obviously, good level D1 program. He had 18.8 points, 8.2 rebounds, 2 assists, about a steal and a block a game, shooting 38.5% from three on 7.5 attempts per game. Now that is pretty enticing, especially if I'm the Charlotte Hornets. Shooting bigs are a commodity now. You love to see it. It's a big thing. Um, and if you don't have necessarily the prototypical size of a former big, where you're more of the Joel Embiid mold, where you're tall and heavier, stocky. If you don't have a stocky build coming into the league, being able to shoot that jumper is definitely going to serve you well, especially if you want to be able to play outright, which we are definitely going to do because why not? You know, we might end up bringing back in a couple more pieces, and we do have a solid core. Obviously, we need to see how things play out with Book Knight and his legal troubles, but I'm comfortable where I'm at. Overall, we got Nick Smith Jr. from Arkansas. We obviously got Brandon. We got Colby Jones from Xavier and Amari Bailey from UCLA, and then Muhammad from Washington State. So we had four, yeah, we had five picks. So we have a lot to figure out. I feel pretty comfortable about it. I didn't obviously love the Brandon Miller pick in the beginning, but I slept on it. Got a haircut about it, as you can see. Looking fresh, looking fresh. Um, and I like it a lot more. I feel a lot more comfortable about it because having two ball dominant guards making things happen, it's cool. It's not the sexiest thing in the world to watch. And if it's LaMelo Ball's team, which it is, it doesn't make sense to make him share the rock and possibly stunt his growth and his development into a perennial all-star, all-NBA type talent for the sake of winning a few more games a year in this coming few years. I think Brandon Miller has the potential to develop into a better fit for the Hornets. As far as being a better overall player, like in a vacuum, just picking, if you're picking your team, one player, and you don't know who the rest of your team is, right now, I'm picking Scoot, no question about it. But I think in the next 5-ish years, 3 to 5 years, we can see Brandon Miller blossom into an all-star level player and really one of the better shooting bigs in the league that is a real problem. Now, the NBA had their little draft analysis thing on it, so I pulled that up. Says an elite scorer who's equally comfortable attacking the rim as he is launching threes. Miller has excellent size at 6'9", with a wingspan approaching 7 feet. While he needs to eventually add weight, Miller is already crafty scorer who uses his length and athleticism to get to the hoop and finish over and around defenders. Scoring is his calling card, but Miller is a willing passer who displays high-level vision traits as a ball handler and in the pick and roll. Mechanics-wise, his jump shot is nearly flawless, and his three-point, 38.4%, and free throw, 85.9%, portray borderline elite shooting at the next level. Defensively, he's active and engaged and should have the size to keep up with most NBA wings. Now, obviously, that's a lot. That's a whole lot. But it really just speaks to how good of a prospect how good of prospects these top three players were. You had Wembanyama, who's supposed to be the best prospect from a should I draft this guy standpoint, and he stands out in really any draft, and he's been playing pro for a minute, so he looks the part, right? Obviously, Brandon Miller and Scoot were really pretty evenly matched. You use them for two different things, so I think it's comparing apples to oranges, really, when you think about it. So for the Hornets, I do understand why we decided to go Brandon Miller. Um, Shout out to MJ, I guess, his last parting gift before walking out the door, because they said that he was gonna have the final say on this draft pick. So it was between Scoot and Brandon. I was hoping he would go Scoot. I'm not mad that he went Brandon anymore. From a defensive side of the ball, which the Hornets have been okay at, could stand to be better. Obviously, we were a Steve Clifford team back when we had Even back when we had Kemba Walker in the Kemba Walker days, we were known to be a defensive team. When we had Al Jefferson, we were a defensive team. So hopefully we can get back to that. I know we don't really love to play the side of the ball. That's not really LaMelo's strong suit. He's a showman, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And if I'm the Hornets, I want to give him the most opportunities to be a showman in a sexy and analytical way. And getting a shooting big is definitely going to help that out because obviously, as the analysis from the NBA said, um, he's going to be good as far as being a willing passer, but he wants to score the ball, right? And we need healthy scores. We need smart scores, and we need efficient scores. And if I'm the Charlotte Hornets and we're not contending for a title in these next 2 years, I feel comfortable with this pick over Scoot because I feel like in these 2 years, I can bridge that gap between their skill set, get them to add a little size as far as from the weight and muscle department, and as his mechanics are really gorgeous. So as long as he maintains that going into the league, obviously having to deal with better closeouts, stronger contests, and just actually somebody being in your face all the time. Because that was something I did notice from watching the film. He did have a lot more open threes at Alabama than I think he will have in the NBA at any point. Obviously, in the beginning, he might catch fire because it's a let that man shoot until he proves you he can hit that shot. And as long as he manages to do that in the beginning, he'll be a very serviceable player right out the beginning, right off the rip, and it'll open up the floor and allow us to get more things going downhill. And honestly, I feel pretty comfortable about it. Let's see here. There wasn't really any amazing picks, I guess I would say. The Magic drafting Anthony Black was a pretty safe pick for me. It wasn't a home run, but it was a pretty comfortable pick if I'm them. Obviously, rounding out the top 10, we had Jarris Walker to the Pacers, and then we got Taylor Hendricks to the Jazz out of UCF, and Cason Wallace from Kentucky getting traded to the Thunder from the Magic's draft. Excuse me, from the Mavericks. Yeah. So overall, pretty. As a Hornets fan, I feel pretty comfortable. Some other teams should feel pretty comfortable too. Obviously, the Spurs won. Hopefully, he could follow the mold of the Tim Duncan, David Robinson, and become a perennial All-Star MVP type candidate. Defensive lockdown, just pace setter, pace controller, dominant big. If I'm Victor Wembanyama, and I do believe he has that ceiling, I don't think that it's fair to force that on him now. But he has more of a Tim Duncan kind of air around him as far as his energy and his manner of speech. He's not an outspoken player. He doesn't talk a lot. He he gets the job done. And if I'm the Spurs, I love that. If I'm Greg Popovich, I love that. And it gives us a strong building piece as long as he doesn't get hurt anymore. Now, uh, obviously, with taller players, you do have to worry about that. Last year, we had Chet Holmgren, and he was out for the season before the season even started in a pointless game. So, Victor did go ahead and decline to play in the Summer League, which to me makes sense because he's still playing more games with his current season right now. Um, so it'd be kind of foolish for him to play that, show out for teams, get drafted, continue his season, play summer league, and then come in for the regular season. That's too much. And he's supposed to be playing in the summer tournament of games, worldwide. So it's just pointless to add extra strain on his body, especially considering how tall he is. That's just higher injury risk. If I want my big to get hurt and he's supposed to be my franchise player, I'd rather him get hurt on national television on a Friday night game than get hurt in the summer league. That's ticket sales. If I'm the sales department, I'm sick to my stomach because sales we didn't make. And if I'm part of the team, I didn't even get to play with the guy, really. So hopefully he takes those strides going forward. I think he will. And if you're the Blazers, you feel comfortable because you have something that you can build around, even if you do decide to offload Dame. Um, Even though he's been there for like 11, going on 12 seasons now, I want to say. Rockets, Pistons, getting the brothers, Magic playing it safe. It's been pretty smooth. And the Wizards, honestly, are some of the biggest winners of the offseason so far just because of what the moves they've been able to put on. And I'm not mad at it at all. Kind of surprised. Obviously, as a Hornets fan, I'm going to have to see them for a while. I like our young core more than theirs. So, W. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and close this one out. So, good morning, good evening, or good night to whoever's watching. And I'll see you in the next one.